telling the mind what to do never works. We cannot handle the mind from the level of the mind. So then how do we handle it?
Jitesh Vaswani. He's a breathwork and meditation expert, TEDx speaker, and my personal favorite, a knower of stars.
You know, Art of Living has grown from a small movement in a village to this global phenomena in 180 countries right now. You know, Art of Living has a program called the Intuition Program. For some kids, the intuition gets sharpened so much that they are able to read while blindfolded. That means that everything in this universe has an effect, has a force, has an energy that it's giving out towards something else. When I did the program, I was like, I want to learn directly from the source.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. Real stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. And today, my guest is Jitesh Vaswani. Welcome to the show this morning, Jitesh. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I want to dive right into the knower of stars because this show is about planting seeds and providing gems to a community of listeners who may not otherwise know how to tap into that beauty, that internal grace that we have, but we're completely unaware of. Would you mind expounding on knower of stars, or at least to the best of your ability?
Sure. See, Sean, in this world, you know, the microcosm is connected to the macrocosm. Everything in this world affects everything else. I'm a student of physics, and the first thing that we learn is, you know, the equation of force that objects have on each other. Yeah. What does that mean? That means that everything in this universe has an effect, has a force, has an energy that it's giving out towards something else. And, you know, my interest peaked up a little bit when I learned about this ancient science of Vedic astrology. So that's where it comes from. So I have dabbled a little bit into how these heavenly bodies, the stars, affect us humans on this planet Earth. And that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I was always a believer. And then, you know, people would come and they do the astrology. You see it in the newspapers here in the States, and people get a kick out of it. It's a form of entertainment. But there's so much truth to it when you start to dive deeper into the science behind it. And I think just like religion, or just like a way of living, it provides people a blueprint to navigate the endless world of distractions and just challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. You've got an interesting bio and resume, as I said. I kept it very short for the audience, and I'd love to expound upon how you got to this place, because you've got a technical background. You want to talk a little bit more about, you know, what your career started in and how you found this avenue to kind of just enhance everything else that you're doing?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm still part of that career. I'm an electrical engineer by profession. I design chips that go on cell phone towers. I'm a radio frequency engineer. So I design power amplifiers for a living. That's what I do. And it's my passion to help people through different healing modalities. A part of it is breathwork, meditation. Vedic astrology comes into the same light. So, you know, my goal has always been that using the talents that I have, how can I serve others? How can I help others? How can I help those around me and uplift those around me? And that's where it stems from. As far as my career is concerned, you know, I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. And ever since then, I've always been intrigued by how chips work, how semiconductors work. And that's what I've been doing.
Now, what inspired you to get involved, particularly with the Art of Living Foundation?
Yes.
What was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst for that was a broken heart, to be honest, Sean. You know, when I was very young in my high school, I think a lot of my learnings have come from relationships which could have worked, in my opinion. But, you know, when we go through something significant like that, as a broken heart, let's say, how we cope with it becomes very important. For me, the coping mechanism became my breath and my meditation practices. And that is when I found the Art of Living Foundation. And Art of Living at its core is an educational nonprofit where they teach you how to really handle your own mind. See, neither at home nor at school, we have learned how to really handle this mind. Like when I was growing up, my parents would yell at me and be like, hey, don't be angry, Jitesh, don't be angry.
Right.
But the irony would be that they would be yelling at me to let me know not to be angry, right? So neither at home nor at school have you been taught how to really handle these emotions. And that is where the Art of Living comes into the picture. When I took their program, that was the first thing they addressed, that how the emotions of the mind are connected to breath and breathing patterns. And using the breath, we can start changing how we feel and how we, respond to different situations in life.
Well, like your parents, as a father of 2 young children, 7 and 2, I'm guilty of asking them to be quiet while yelling at them. So what can I do, or what can some of our listeners do in the moment to recapture that peace, to take that time out or that 10 seconds that we learned? But I want to hear a little bit more of a deep explanation as to how that works, what it does with the body, because I'm familiar with breathwork, but some of our audience may not be.
Absolutely. See, with kids, Sean, I think, they don't do what we tell them to do, but they do what we do, right? So we have to set the right example. So for all the parents that are watching this, first of all, I think it's important that we want to raise our kids in a calm, peaceful environment, right? And for that, we want them to grow up to be more calm and peaceful. So for that, we have to set an example by first handling our own emotions and our own mind better. And the way to do that is, using different breathing modalities. The reason is handling the mind from the level of the mind does not work. For example, if I tell you, Sean, right now, close your eyes and do not think of a red monkey dancing in a pink skirt. And the first thing that the mind does is it thinks exactly about that. Or another example which your audience might relate to. For example, have you ever had sleepless nights, Sean, like when you're tossing and turning and you're just telling yourself, go to bed, I should be asleep by now already. I have an early morning tomorrow. But it doesn't work, right? Because telling the mind what to do never works. So all the ancient yogis, they recognize this. They were like, okay, we cannot handle the mind from the level of the mind. So then how do we handle it? And that's when they realize this innate connection between the emotions of the mind and the breath. So for example, how do you breathe when you are, let's say, angry?
Shallow and quicker.
Shallow and quicker. How do you breathe when you're sad?
More deeply and introspectively,
right? So do you know?
I guess.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of sighing involved. It's like you sigh a lot when you're sad.
Right.
Like that. There's more emphasis on the exhalation.
Even you saying it, I mimicked it because we get what we focus on, right?
Exactly.
Hence the red monkey and the pink skirt.
Exactly.
Or the tossing and turning, which I was doing all night just yesterday, knowing that I had to come into the studio today. So,
oh my God.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah. From our own experience, we notice that different emotions have an impact on our breath and breathing pattern. But physiologically, thankfully, this is a two-way street. So by learning different breathing techniques, we start impacting the emotions of the mind. Yeah. And for all the parents watching this, I would recommend that if you can take out even 10 minutes of your time in a day and just practice some breathing technique, some meditation technique, something to calm your mind down. Not only it helps you directly, right, by you being calm, but also it sets the right example for your kids, for your children, for the young ones who are going to be, taking care of this world in the up next, 20, 30 years. So it's important, I believe.
I think it's actually paramount. And unfortunately, I'll speak for myself, but I think for so many, it's the last thing that we focus on, the internal peace. Breathwork is a tool to get to that place. People are familiar with meditation, obviously yoga, and being in, extended periods of time in those positions with relaxing music can get you to a place. I've done float tanks before. People may do breathwork or meditation in the sauna. You name it. There's all kinds of fads and things that, come and go. I have a great mentor. I just want to share this. And they simplified the things that we focus on in our life for a full, healthy, fulfilling life. It's the 4 Bs. A gentleman by the name of Raul Velasquez, who runs a male leadership program. And it's the body, it's your bonds, your relationships with others, your business, and your being. Now, I didn't put them in order. I put them in the order that I find myself focusing on it. The last thing that I focus on is the being, which is probably the most powerful tool. How can someone find peace in a space that's chaotic? Because I've got 2 young kids, I've got a dog, and all I need is 10 minutes, and I know that. Yet and still, I don't find the time. But I'll find 90 minutes to go to the gym. I'll find hours and hours to build my business. And obviously, I'm working on my bonds consistently, as my family's the most important thing for me. How can I institute that small practice or give myself enough grace on a day-to-day basis to ramp up to a place where I can dedicate more time to it?
Well, first of all, what you said is so true. We need all those 4 things, right? But in my opinion, I think that it's like legs of a chair. You pull any leg, all the 4 kind of come in. A person who is disciplined for their business will eventually become disciplined for their own self and their own being. A person who is taking care of their body will eventually form the right mindset, let's say, to be successful in their own business. I think doing all 4 of these together can form like a more holistic approach towards living life, right? And not one versus the other. So in my opinion, it's like legs of a chair. So wherever you start, you eventually will gravitate towards the other 3. Right. So for those of us who are watching it, yes, of course, start anywhere, right? Start anywhere. Start building, becoming disciplined either for your business, for your body, for your being. But wherever you start, eventually it will expand to all the other arenas of your life. Because I believe like however you do one thing, like the way you do your one thing is the way you do all the other things in life. If you're not disciplined for your business, you won't be disciplined for your bonds, for your community, for your relationships with your family, and vice versa. Like just taking like even 5 minutes or 10 minutes as you're laying down, maybe doing some breathing techniques, maybe right before you're falling asleep, maybe playing some yoga nidra. It's my mentor, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, the founder of The Art of Living, he has this really nice audio called Yoga Nidra. So for people who have a hard time sitting up and meditating and doing some breath work, you can, it's a free, he runs a free app called Sattva, Sattba, where there are tons of meditation resources, all free of cost for anybody, even beginners wanting to start off with something as small as like 5-minute meditation or a 4-minute meditation or something like that. So you can start small and eventually build up from there.
I think the thinking is always that we have to have it all together. And people seem to forget that time is a construct. The 24-hour day, the 7-day week, the 365-day year. It's just something that man created to give some structure to time. But time is not real. Obviously, that's a little convoluted to say the least. But once we come to that understanding, I think, and we've gotten some of the stressors relieved from our life, whether it be our basic needs, our bills being paid in this modern world, our children being taken care of and happy, then we can start to focus internally. And I always say, start with 1 minute, because if you're not doing anything, 1 minute is 1,000% improvement.
Yes.
And it can at least open the door to something greater. What I love is your work with the Art of Living Foundation focuses on these practices and techniques at an early age. How has some of the work with your K through 12 students been impactful? How is it that you create resilience in these young adults and these young kids, teaching them emotional intelligence and also just a stress-free mindset at a time and an age where it's so easy to fall into the trappings of not only the physiological things happening with that age group, but also social media and technology and all the hustle and bustle that goes along with that?
The kids respond so well to it, Sean. It's actually incredible to see the amount of growth that they have in just one or two retreats. Art of Living has a program called the Intuition Program. And for some kids, the intuition gets sharpened so much that they're able to read while blindfolded. And I know this might sound like weird, it's like what? But it's incredible. You should watch some of these videos on YouTube. Type Art of Living Intuition Program and watch some of the kids. The kids are doing like obstacle courses while being blindfolded. Some kids are solving Rubik's Cube while being blindfolded. So their intuition, the sense of intuition develops so much that it goes beyond the five senses that we know. So the sixth sense in its true form. Now, for all of the kids, like this may not happen. For some kids, it shows up as just starting to believe in themselves, right? Eliminating the self-doubt. And that leads to more confidence. More confidence leads to more resilience and more belief in one's own abilities, right? So at a practical daily level, this is how it shows up. But for some kids who are like diligent with their practice and they go the extra mile, they're able to form this intuitive abilities, which they're able to predict what questions they'll get in the exam tomorrow. It's crazy.
Wow.
So they start developing this gut feeling. And now imagine these kids when they grow up, like gut feeling is one of the main things to be successful in a business. You, out of all people, would probably attest to that, right? Like believing in your intelligence and at the same time believing in your intuition. Both are important to be successful in this world, in business or in work environment or wherever. Would you agree with me on that?
100%. I was just covered in goosebumps. And the reason being is that I think the only reason that I'm successful is my intuition. And I was able to make enough mistakes and build enough confidence and overcome enough adversity and build that resilience that you spoke of early on in life. And the power of belief in oneself is just amazing. So I'm part of so many different masterminds and business organizations and groups, and rarely am I the guy that can go and talk about the details. But when I talk about trusting my gut and taking a chance on myself, I light up because that's my superpower. And I think I need to find more of the other part, but because I'm so in tune with that gut feeling, that intuition, I've given myself enough grace to say, okay, this is what I'm great at. And some people I don't think anybody's better at it. I think I'm just more practiced. So I've trusted my gut in situations where other people would have second guessed themselves. Even when it came to business decisions, I just throw caution to the wind and I say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I throw large amounts of money at things that other people would balk at because I trust my gut. And it doesn't always pay off, but when it does, it's amazing. And you talked about your students being able to predict what questions would be on the test. And some people that might go over their heads, but I promise you it's real. And for me, that confidence was really accentuated and built in a prison cell. At the age of 29, I found myself in prison for 2 years. And I started reading self-development books. I started reading books on meditation. I read the Dalai Lama's book. I really just started becoming a student of life without the distractions of life. There is peace to some extent, and I'm not wishing that on anybody, and it's not a good place to find peace, but I found peace in prison, and I was able to manifest my life, what I wanted, very clearly in a composition notebook, actually several composition notebooks, and so many of those things have come true and come to fruition. So I'm a believer, brother. You know, like I pass this message on and I share that message as much as possible because I really implore the young people of the world to start to dream and to dream big, because I truly do believe that's God's proof in advance that those things that you desire are already yours. But you have to have the courage to start to believe in them, to manifest them, to write them down, and when the time is right and with the right people, to share it. Because so many people will try to crush your dreams because of a lack of understanding. I also mentioned prison, and I know that you guys do some prison rehabilitation work as well.
Yes.
I mean, the scope of the Art of Living Foundation is global.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing in prisons.
Yes. Art of Living has a presence in over 180 countries right now.
Wow.
And even in the United States, we have touched the lives of 800,000 inmates. People who had no hope in terms of how they will adjust back into the society. They're sharing crazy stories of transformation. Gurudev says, behind every culprit there's a victim crying for help. Right? So if you see from our eyes, of course, like, people have done things that they should not do, but they were forced out of either circumstances or different situations that they were forcing in life. Or if you ask them, they're like, oh no, I don't know how it happened. I just lost my mind for a second and then something took over and then I committed this crime or this whatever. And it all stems from not being able to handle our own mind. Right. So we help them address it at the root level. And when we have seen that when Art of Living teachers go and teach them and listen to their problems, a lot of them are just looking for a listening ear, somebody to listen to them and be a mentor to them, be an advisor to them, be there for them on this journey, and let them know that somebody does care for them and they're not the forgotten part of the society. Right. So the Art of Living breathing and meditation techniques are also present in the prison system. In fact, we have partnered with a few states here in the United States to bring this to all the prisons, even in different countries around the world. In Denmark, we just finished a program for 600 prisoners. In India, we are present in one of the biggest jails, the Tihar jail. It's very popular. Art of Living program is present there, and within a few sessions of breathing and meditation with the Art of Living, you can see light come back into their life, into their eyes, right? You can see the sparkle come back into the eyes. People who who feel as if they have been defeated by life, they start dreaming again. And our goal from the Art of Living perspective is, every human life is important. We want to create a stress-free, violence-free society. And it does not happen if we do not address those who have been incarcerated by the system.
Yeah, we are not the sum of the decisions that we made. And there may have been some terrible decisions and people were probably harmed in the process. But everyone is redeemable. Everyone is capable of transforming their lives. And you mentioned the absence of mentors in their life, and that is my goal with this show. It is to provide a virtual mentorship program. Obviously, I do work in the community as well, and I aim to attract people like yourself or others that have amazing stories to tell, tools to share, because I just want people to know that you are what you think you are. So if you can start to think differently of yourself, you'll start to think differently of the world. And all of a sudden, things are starting to look up. Well, there's a saying that if everybody in prison had 30 seconds to take back, nobody would be in prison. Yeah. Because that's how quickly that decision or that lack of smart decision-making takes in order for you to change your entire life and the life of others that may be victims of whatever crime you commit. But you're not beyond redemption. You're absolutely capable of it and deserving of it, but you have to put in the work and you have to be open to it. So it's not magic until you start to put in the work, and then you start to see the magic happen. And I like to say that magic is real. You just have to believe that it is.
Absolutely.
But so many people are in such a dark place, or at least they believe that they're in this dark place that they can't get out of. Trauma is a huge, huge part of growing up in poverty, not only in the Bronx, in a housing project where I'm from, but around the world. And people seem to be more than ever caught in this cycle of depression, this cycle of not being able to escape their own feelings. How is it that someone who's dealing with real trauma, someone who's been through something, can start to take even the smallest strides to address that so that we can start building that resilience and that confidence up within themselves?
Right. See, if not taking that step is easier, then I would say do that. But more often than not, people will find that being stuck in that negative space, in that dark space, is not easy at all, right? And life forces us in towards evolution. Life forces us to, like an easy way to get depressed is to lie on the couch for 10 minutes and just think, what about me? What about me? What about me? What about me? If you start doing that, even successful people like us, or people who are in so-called okay spaces in their mind,
Right.
Even people like us, we will fall into depression, right? So an easy way to step out of that mindset is to somehow snap yourself out of the mind and get into action, right? Yes, we all have big dreams. We all have, dreams for our life. But without action, without taking that first step, it's impossible to reach there, right? Then it's all just a great thought in the mind, right? Without truly any substance behind it. So the first step is to jump into action. And how do you jump into action? Is instead of thinking, what about me? I would encourage people to start thinking, why do I want this in my life? When the why is clear in our lives, then I think action becomes easier. So the first step is think about your why. Like, why do I want to come out of this space? Why do I want to be successful? Why do I want to do whatever I want to do in my life? And then the second step is that why provides the motivation for action. So we need to act. We need to start acting on our dreams. And then the third step is to reward ourselves. Once we have done some action, even if it's a small action, we have to trigger the reward principle in our brain. Whatever it might be, anything. It could be anything small. It could be doing something nice for yourselves just because I took action. When the brain recognizes that, yes, these actions for my growth, they are being rewarded, then you want to do more of those. So that's my way of dealing with things when I'm in a not so good mind space. That's how I deal with it, right? I start with, why do I want to get out of this mindset? And then what actions do I need to take? And then the third step is to reward myself when I take those actions, even if it's small.
Yeah, you mentioned stepping out of that mind space, and it's literally stepping out. Get off the couch,
Yes.
Do something, get outdoors. Sitting on a couch, scrolling through your Instagram or your Facebook or your TikTok or whatever social media, or watching Netflix, it is the kiss of death. And I think we have just been absorbed, overrun, and overwhelmed with instant gratification and entertainment. So essentially, we're just passing time, being entertained. It's a challenge that I find that is very tough for people in that space to realize. You mentioned taking action, creating a why, and then, rewarding yourself. Rewarding yourself is interesting. When I get on any coaching call, it's, what are we celebrating? We're going to start with the wins, right?
Yes.
However, I have friends and family that the first thing they talk about when we get on a call is all the losses, all the negativity, all the why me's. And it's so easy to just fall into that trap. And then even more so, you find people playing a comparison game of who has it worse. And it's just a bad cycle. It's a pattern. It's a pattern that people are unaware of. And just motion creates emotion, easiest way to break it. Now, for successful people, not people in depression. They still find themselves in that story, but maybe they have resources or they have, people around them that are counting on them, so they can't fall into that trap for too long. And you said something beautiful, which is celebrate. So the way that I've found more fulfillment in my life, and it seems like you and the Art of Living Foundation as a whole, globally, is to be of service to others. Because nothing speaks to humanity and what we're here for like lifting up another human being. What are some of the things that the Art of Living and you are doing globally to scale this amazing project? How can our listeners find out more? We're going to put resources, obviously, in the bio and in the links below. But I wanted to hear what your plans for scaling are. And more specifically, we're in the New York region. Are you familiar with anything or any resources locally that our people here in New York can take advantage of?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Art of Living's main mantra is that joy increases by sharing, right? So service is a big component of how this foundation has grown from a small movement in a village to this global phenomena in 180 countries right now. And how can people get involved? We believe that a stress-free society can only be created by a stress-free family. And a stress-free family can only be created by a stress-free individual. So the first step for your listeners that I would recommend is just Google Art of Living and start taking responsibility for your own mind and your own emotions. And start there. Start with yourself. Be selfish at the beginning, right? Work on yourselves. And when, it's like watering a dried out plant, right? When you water a plant, the plant starts growing and, you provided the nourishment and then suddenly it has fruits. Before you even know it, it has fruits for others, right? So that's what I would do, if I was one of your listeners. I would start with myself, start watering my own plant. And then before you even know it, you will have fruits to share with the world. Right? Happiness is something which is contagious. When you are happy, peaceful, content from inside, you'll notice that that's what you will want for the people who are close to you. And then happy individual leads to happy families, and happy families lead to a happier society, right? So start there, Google the word Art of Living, artofliving.org, and find a program that you can, take part in. In the New York area specifically, we have a center in the Manhattan area. So you can find us. We have a physical location. And yeah, we have a 3-day retreat called the Art of Living Part 1 course, where we teach this beautiful technique called, it's Sanskrit. It's called Sudarshan Kriya Yoga. The Su means proper. Darshan means vision. And Kriya is action. An action which can give us proper vision of ourself, of our being, like you were referring to, Sean. So this breathing technique, 20, 25 minutes of practice every day, and it leaves you fresh and energized throughout the day. It's actually incredible. See, how much food do we take in a day? Like maybe a few pounds, right? How much water do we drink every day? Maybe 1 or 2 gallons, right? How much air do we breathe every day? Almost 10,000 liters of air goes through our system every single day.
Wow.
Yeah. Breathing is the only act which is both voluntary and involuntary. Like it's going on its own, but also you can control it. It's the only act in our body. So there is a reason why this is also voluntary. You can control your breath. You can control your emotions. You can control your mind through the breath. So it's interesting. I would say just start with your why and then take that action.
You mentioned families, and
yes,
I want to backtrack just a tad, because a lot of what I see in my community, Black and brown communities here in the United States, in poverty, there is a lack of familial structure. And I know that you guys do some work in the space of veterans and families dealing with PTSD. There's a lot of PTSD and a lot of trauma. So, family structures aren't always healthy.
Right.
But a healthy family structure, in my humble opinion, it's invaluable. I heard something just yesterday, and I don't know if it's true. It was on the internet, so you got to be skeptical. But I think it makes sense. And it said that There's never been a Super Bowl winning quarterback that didn't grow up with a father in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to assume they grew up with a mother in their life because it's very rare
Right.
that it would be just the father raising a child. I could be wrong. How powerful is a healthy family to the advancement of not only the individual, but the human race as a whole?
I think it's very important. And in my opinion, see, that's the difference between the East and the West, right? Like I come from India and family is like of prime importance where I come from, right? And you hardly see families breaking up. Like at least as compared to the number of families that I've
Right.
seen
It's
who are
50-50
dysfunctional
here.
here in the West. It's 50-50 here. I would say
It's a
there it's
coin
more
toss.
about 80-20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 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 in my opinion, even if somebody does not have, let's say, a healthy family structure, I'm not trying to force them into a family
Right.
structure, but building a sense of community with those around you, right? Everybody has somebody that are some people who are close to them, who will catch them when they fall, and that's what I mean by, let's say, healthy individual leads to, let's say, healthy family or healthy community, right? Those are so it's like a um, if one person somehow stops this trauma response that the society is going through, then we can create a beautiful society. It's like, the kid goes to school and has a fight with their friend. They come back home, they fight with their mom or their dad, and then the mom or the dad gets stressed and they fight with the neighbor, and then the neighbor gets stressed, they fight with somebody else. So in this world where stress is propagating, we need a few people who can be stress stoppers and not stress
Ah.
propagators, right? So in that sense, a healthy individual in current days and time is plays such an important role, not just for themselves but also for those around them, for those whom they love, right? So in some scenarios it may be a family, in some scenarios it may be a group of friends, in some scenarios it may just be a community of people that they have built around them. Yeah, so whatever it is
Right. We're
that you
better.
have.
We're better as a communal unit than we are on
Exactly.
our own. And I just think
Exactly.
people all, not people all, but there's so many people that feel alone, like they're doing this on their own. And that is where you get into that cycle of depression because you feel that there's no way out. There's no one to talk to. There's no one that gets you or understands you. And I think you said something really, really poignant and beautiful, which I hadn't heard before. We need cycle breakers.
Yes.
We need people who break the cycle of that negative energy because it's all about, if you turn on the TV
Right.
or you get on your Instagram feed, it's pumping you negativity because people are wired to be safe and, they just gravitate toward negativity. The nightly news, let's lead with who got shot. Let's not lead with something that's positive. So breaking that cycle, I'll give you this example.
Mm-hmm.
Road rage. As a young man, I was full of it. I mean, there were times, I was just telling this story over lunch the other day to some friends where I was just acting ridiculously as a young man driving my car and taking my anger, taking my frustrations out on random people on the road. And as an adult who has gotten that under control, who has found some semblance of peace in myself, I have been the receiving party of road rage. And what I've done to break that wave, that negativity, I'll roll down the window. I'll say, listen, I apologize. My fault. No excuses. The person will be yelling at me at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
But I have enough wherewithal to just be like, come on, brother. Are we really going to do this? And just shoot them a smile. And it just disarms them. 99 out of 100 times.
Yes.
Being in New York, we have a merge, to go into a lane. If you just look over at the person and ask politely, do you mind if I go? 9 times out of 10, it's New York City, so I'm not going to give them 99 out of 100, but I'll give them 9 times out of 10, they're going to let you in the lane. There's always going to be that person, but that's somebody stuck in their own negative cycle, and they're so strong into it that they refuse to let you break that pattern. But we all have the power to break that pattern. So
Absolutely.
I love the way you put that. I wanted to just hammer home how simple a gesture of kindness or a gesture of positivity can be because it is the energy that we're lacking in the world. And I like to think that people are more good than not good because I'm a glass half full person. Seems that you're the same way.
Yes.
So I really love that analogy. I want to thank you for coming on today. I want to thank you for just being who you are and being on the mission that you're on. Also, tell me about your mentor, Ravi Shankar, because I'm familiar with the name and I saw the face just doing the research for this episode. And it's somebody who I know and I've seen. But tell me a little bit more about that and how you came across and began working with him in the organization.
Yeah, I consider myself very lucky that I get to work with him directly and personally on a lot of different projects with the Art of Living. But he's somebody who I find to be in my life, at least, a source of unconditional love and unconditional mentorship. Right? I think we as individuals, we all seek a person or a fallback person with whom we can be completely open and honest and authentic and vulnerable without the fear of being judged, and somebody who will offer the right advice at the right time. So for me, that's who he is. He plays that role for millions of people around the world. So he started the Art of Living Foundation when he was very young. He started traveling, teaching meditation, and I came across his teachings when I mentioned, when I was in my high school. And when I did the program, the Art of Living program, it brought such a profound shift in my mind that I was like, I want to learn directly from the source, right? So he has trained right now. He has trained thousands of teachers, around 40,000 teachers, Art of Living teachers who are teaching breathing and meditation, who are like acting as pillars for their society in the region where they live. They're providing so much peace and harmony to those around them, right, through their teachings. But my goal personally was that I want to learn from the original person. So every once in a while, he would offer a meditation retreat or a breathwork retreat where he's teaching it himself. He does travel to the United States very often as well. So I took a few programs and I requested for an appointment to meet him, and he was kind enough to accept that request, and I shared, that I would like to learn from him. And so I got, I developed that relationship. I nurtured that relationship, and like many others within the Art of Living Foundation who have done the same thing and found themselves in a much more powerful position, than where they began. So I think the need for mentors in our life is real. Right. And that's why when somebody reached out to me with your podcast name, I was like, I want to do this show because I truly believe in the power of mentorship and what you are providing to your listeners as well, Sean. What you're doing is great work. So thank you for your work and your light as well.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I wish, well, it wasn't my story, so I don't wish, but my life could have been a lot different had I had mentors, specifically male mentors in my life at a younger age. So, God put me here and he put me through the things that he put me through and showed me the grace to get out the other side better for them so that I could now be that to others. And I love the fact that you went straight to the source. I'm a big believer in that. Obviously you have to have the resources to go straight to the source like you did with Ravi. A personal mentor of mine is Tony Robbins. And again, I have the resources, but there's plenty of free resources. You mentioned Googling Art of Living in your area or all the resources that are available online. And I implore my young audience members all the time, what does your social media feed look like? You're spending 8 hours a day on your phone. What are you spending it on? Just passing the time? Being entertained, staying the same? With that same time, you could grow exponentially if you just put that energy towards something that will water your plant, water you to become a better human being. So again, I just want to thank you for coming on. And I want to ask if you could tell anybody that's been inspired today by our shares where they can find more about you personally and then also about the organization, both online and any other resources.
Right. So for finding me personally, I'm on Instagram. You can DM me, Jitesh Vaswani. And maybe, Sean, if you can provide the link for your listeners in the bio. And then Art of Living, I think finding Art of Living is much more important than finding me personally, because I'm just one of the instructors with this huge foundation, with this huge movement, right? So go to artofliving.org and you'll find a lot of resources. And go to sattva.life, sattva.life. And it's a free meditation app that Art of Living provides to all the people. It's one of the best meditation apps. It was voted as #1 in India recently on the App Store and the Play Store. So definitely check out this app. It's a great resource. It's very well designed and it's completely free. And it has tons and tons of resources for all of you. So definitely check that out.
Well, thank you again, Jitesh. I appreciate you coming on the show. Have a blessed morning. I know it's early for you over there, so I really just want to say thank you again for coming on and giving us your time and your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Have a blessed day. Take care.
You as well. Thank you all for tuning in to the Real Mentors podcast. We're going to include all of the links, all of the information we discussed below. Stay tuned. And as always, let's get it.